Without a doubt, Tanjiro is a pivotal character in the Demon Slayer series. Upon his introduction, his character sent a ripple throughout his verse that ultimately ended in becoming huge waves of trouble for the Demon King, MUZAN Kibutsuji. But have you ever asked the question, what if Tanjiro was born in the same era as Yoriichi? What would happen to him? Would he become a Demon Slayer? Or will he just live a normal life, much like his ancestors? Well, in this video, I'll answer all these questions, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Yoriichi Sugikuni was born during the Sengoku era along with his twin brother Michikatsu, better known as the Upper Moon One Kokushibo. In their era, Yoriichi became the first breath user to fight off against demons that plagued the land. Due to his creation of the sun breathing, he became the strongest demon slayer to have ever existed and helped the other demon slayers become stronger. So, how would Tanjiro live his life in this era? Well, at the top of my head, I would say that there are only two scenarios for Tanjiro in this lifetime. One is to become a demon slayer, and two is to live his life the way his ancestors did. By fate, Yoriichi and Tanjiro's ancestors are deeply connected. So, for the first scenario, here's how it's going to play out. Let's say Kamado Tanjiro was born during the Sengoku era. Out of the two scenarios, I have this one as my favorite. You see, in this timeline, Tanjiro is born as Sumiyoshi Kamado's son, who we all know in later chapters was a close friend of Yoriichi Sugikuni. In his young age, Tanjiro has always admired Yoriichi both as a person and as a swordsman. Seeing Yoriichi's stature and discipline was already enough to convince the young Tanjiro to do whatever it takes to follow in his footsteps as a warrior. But how would Tanjiro become a demon slayer? Well, based on this scenario in the original series, I would say he becomes a demon slayer for the same reason. Tanjiro's family in this timeline is also attacked by a demon, but the difference is that this demon was not the Demon King himself. Instead, it was just a regular demon. And as fate would have it, only his father, Sumiyoshi Kamado, would die for defending his family using the movements he observed from Yoriichi. But with the absence of a Nichiren blade, all Sumiyoshi could do was hold the demon back for as long as he could, allowing his family to escape and ask for help. As the sun rose, Tanjiro went back to their home, only to find his father's lifeless body and Yoriichi shedding a tear over his friend's corpse. The scene would be the seed of vengeance for Tanjiro, further solidifying his decision to become a demon slayer. After seeing Tanjiro's resolve in wanting to avenge his father's death, Yoriichi decides to take him under his wing and teaches him everything he knows about breathing techniques and demons. Becoming Yoriichi's pupil was a dream come true for Tanjiro, and with the raging fire in his soul that's hungry for revenge, Tanjiro endured the rigorous training under his master's supervision. As Tanjiro observed and sparred with Yoriichi, it did not take much time for all his efforts to bloom. In this scenario, Tanjiro mastered the sun breathing technique to a certain degree, but instead of cultivating his skills in this breathing style, Tanjiro developed his own breathing technique that proved to be equal to Yoriichi's. Wielding a Nichiren blade and becoming a wanderer, Tanjiro, equipped with the knowledge passed down to him by Yoriichi, cut down demons without mercy. You know, I mentioned the word wanderer, right? Well, he would become one along with Yoriichi, and they would both be exiled when Kokushibo betrays the core and becomes the Upper Moon One. Anyway, he'll be so strong that his reputation grows big enough for MUZAN to take notice of him. With his ability to access the transparent world and turn his blade red, Tanjiro cuts down demons like it was nothing. Considering his potential and being a pupil of Yoriichi, their demon-slaying efforts would greatly increase, which could lead to a different approach in battling demons. And surely, as another monster like Yoriichi is born during his time, the tide of the battle would end up being in favor for the demon slayers. To answer the question, how strong would Tanjiro be as a demon slayer? Well, it wouldn't even be crazy to assume that if Tanjiro was born in the same era as Yoriichi and had the opportunity to train under him, without a doubt, in my mind, I really do believe that he could stand on the same pedestal as the legendary swordsman Yoriichi Sugikuni himself. But would Tanjiro help Yoriichi in his battle with MUZAN? If Tanjiro grew into a warrior who is on the same level as Yoriichi and MUZAN faced them both at the same time, I genuinely believe that MUZAN's life would end right then and there. MUZAN would have double PTSD. We have to remember that Yoriichi traumatized Muzan so much that after their fight, he fled and hid for many years to come. So in the scenario where Muzan faces off against Yoriichi and Tanjiro at the same time, here's how I think it would go down. With his ability to access the transparent world and turn his blade red, along with his mastery of sun breathing and his original fighting style, Tanjiro is able to go toe-to-toe against the Demon King and fight alongside Yoriichi without holding him back. As their fight rages on, Tanjiro reaches his peak, thus allowing him to unlock the Demon Slayer mark. With this, Muzan's fate is sealed and death is certain. With Tanjiro having Yoriichi's back, they keep pushing Muzan past his limits. In a last-ditch effort to try and escape his ill fate, Muzan explodes into tiny pieces, each capable of regenerating itself back to its original form. But in this timeline, all those pieces are disposed of. As Tanjiro and Yoriichi work together, they swiftly catch all of the scattered pieces and destroy them, ultimately defeating the demons once and for all. Now, as you may or may not know, Demon Slayers die at the age of 25, after unlocking their Demon Slayer marks, which means Tanjiro would never have lived past 25 years old in this alternate timeline. On the other hand, Muzan is dead. But just to be safe, Tanjiro taught his descendants the Hinokami Kagura dance as part of their family tradition. That's my take on the first scenario. What do you think? Drop those comments. Moving on, let's proceed to the second scenario where Tanjiro lives the life of his ancestor Kamado Sumiyoshi. As a coal burner, Tanjiro would end up living the same life Sumiyoshi led. In actuality, both Sumiyoshi and Tanjiro are the same in more ways than one. As we all know, Tanjiro is kind-hearted, generous, honest, and humble, and so is Sumiyoshi, so the two of them switching places would not be that confusing at all. From their looks to how they dress themselves, Tanjiro is literally a carbon copy of Sumiyoshi from top to bottom, but the difference will happen down the line. You see, one thing that sets Sumiyoshi apart from Tanjiro is that Sumiyoshi has extraordinary memory, which allows him to absorb and remember information with astounding accuracy. This special ability allows him to memorize Yoriichi's sun-breathing technique despite only seeing it once. With him being able to remember every single detail of the sun-breathing technique, he was able to replicate it perfectly, which he then passed down to his descendants. This led to Tanjiro being able to use Hinokami Kagura, or the Dance of the Fire God, another name they used to call the sun-breathing technique in the original series. This is what sets Tanjiro apart from Sumiyoshi. Without Tanjiro having this crucial ability, Yoriichi's legacy would never be passed down. This would mean bad news for Tanjiro's descendants, and if we follow the original plot minus Tanjiro being the main character, Hinokami Kagura would never be born, and Yoriichi's sun-breathing technique would disappear from history for good. How would this scenario affect the future? Well, to put it simply, Tanjiro's descendants would still suffer the fate they were meant to have, which is their family getting massacred by Muzan and transforming Tanjiro's great-great-great-great-granddaughter into a demon, and his great-great-great-great-grandson would become a demon slayer to avenge his family's death. But the domino starts to fall after that. You see, in the Mount Natagumo arc, for the first time ever we see Tanjiro use Hinokami Kagura to fend off Rui, the Lower Moon 5, in the original timeline. So if Tanjiro was able to pass down the sun-breathing technique to his descendants, at this point they would have no chance of holding out against Rui. Why, you ask? I mean, if you remember it as much as I do, Hinokami Kagura saved Tanjiro in that fight. He barely held out long enough for Gyu to arrive and rescue him. Let's be honest, we all saw how Rui destroyed Tanjiro while he was using water-breathing techniques in the original series. Not only that, but in later arcs, Tanjiro practically stopped using water breathing and focused on his new technique, which was originally called sun breathing. So it would spell trouble for Tanjiro's descendants if they don't have access to Yoriichi's technique. Another thing that hit me is that many of us speculate that the main reason why Nezuko was able to conquer the sun was because of their connection to Yoriichi and the sun breathing technique. So if we follow this logic, 1 or 2 generations after Tanjiro, the Kamado family would have severed their connection with the legendary warrior Yoriichi, meaning Nezuko would never be able to conquer a demon's greatest weakness, and in the Swordsmith Village arc, she would have died from being exposed to the sun. That would be a sad, sad day. Another effect that would permanently disappear in the story is the Demon Slayer mark. The reason for me saying this is that in the manga, Shinjiro Rengoku explained that all past users of the sun-breathing technique were said to have naturally had marks on their foreheads. Now looking back, we see Tanjiro, who is Tanjiro's father, having that very same depicted mark on his forehead, which was later revealed to be a Demon Slayer mark. Meaning, not only does Tanjiro have complete mastery of the Hinokami Kagura and access to the transparent world, but he also wears a Demon Slayer mark because of his exposure to the sun breathing technique, passed down in their family thanks to Sumiyoshi. So, if Sumiyoshi and Tanjiro were to switch places, it would mean bye-bye sun breathing and bye-bye Demon Slayer marks. So, how would Tanjiro be born in the same era as Yoriichi affect the story in this scenario? The answer to this is really simple. If the Demon Slayer plot were to follow this scenario, a lot of things could be altered. First of all, Tanjiro would never have been Nezuko's brother, which means if the story was to flow as it was originally intended, the main character in the series would be a different person. Second, the story would shift its focus from the current era, where the original plot takes place, to the Sengoku era, when Yoriichi was still alive. Plus, tons of major character revisions would happen, and not one of the original characters we know would ever be alive to a certain point. Third, the crucial effect of Sumiyoshi's encounter with Yoriichi is what set the stage for Tanjiro and the entirety of the show. I mean, if you ask me, Sumiyoshi is the MVP in Demon Slayer, because without him, Tanjiro wouldn't be as strong as he is now, as he cannot use the Hinokami Kagura and the Demon Slayer mark. So regardless of which scenario you choose, both would have interesting outcomes that would have a huge impact on the flow of the story. Now that we've answered, what if Tanjiro was born in Yoriichi's era, let us know down in the comments what you thought about both scenarios, and if there could be possibly a third one. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. See you in the next one. Peace.